Gatov, also known as the Blaze Wolf, and currently the captain of the Watch Engrams, was a king of the neutral kingdom of Lefkis. The kingdom was destroyed by neighboring kingdoms to gain access to rare resources that Lefkis possessed. He ran with his daughter, who eventually died, and settled in Grams, after having his daughter revived in the Fairy Kingdom. In the campaign, he has been with Uden's team ever since their arrival in the city of Grams, and has finally become playable after Gala Roderick vanished from existence. Taking on from his deceased friend, he is also an axe unit that also dual wields. Unlike Ordric though, he only has access to dual wielding when his sword master gauge is filled, and carries an axe by default. Depending on what weapon he wields, his skills and effects change, and even his skills change depending on which alternating skill is used prior to it. His kit is incredibly complicated. So let's begin by looking at his basic attacks, which are also unique, a feature shared by many recent Gala units. As Gatov carries two sets of weapons, each set has its own attack pattern, distinct even from their respective weapon types. His axe attack pattern is actually quite similar to the normal axe pattern, especially in terms of speed and modifiers, though Gatov's 5th combo deals one less hit, and also having lower overall SP gain when compared to typical axe attacks. When he unleashes his inner Kirito and goes Starburst Stream, this is where things become much more interesting. The dual swords attack pattern consists of a 7 combo chain, with higher average modifiers and SP gain than its normal sword counterpart. The attack speed is actually quite similar, though it looks faster due to the fact that he is wielding two swords. His final attack in the sword combo chain has an additional effect, which it increases the skill damage of the next use of either double flame or dual demolition, both being variants of his first and second skills respectively. His dual sword form also has a unique force strike, where he doesn't dash forward. Instead, he performs a dual backhand sword slash, dealing greater damage and performing more hits than the normal counterpart. It also has more range, though all of these are inexpensive as OD modifiers. His first skill, Charge Blade, costs a whopping 10,450 SP. This skill is default when Gatov is wielding an axe, and it completely fills the Swordmaster gauge. When he goes Starburst Stream, a variant called Crimson Rush is used instead, which mainly uses his red sword. Crimson Rush has a much lower SP cost of 2,240 SP, and deals 1,620% damage. It also inflicts Scorch Rend. When this skill is used immediately after Azure Raid, which is the default second skill when in dual sword form, another variant called Double Flame is used instead. Double Flame has the same SP cost as Crimson Rush, and has the same effects, though he uses both of his swords. But, Double Flame deals more damage, at 2,336%, around 700% more damage than Crimson Rush. This skill has 3 variants, though Crimson Rush and Double Flame are very similar. Charge Blade is definitely an expensive skill, but it completely fills the Swordmaster gauge, which is vital in his overall kit, since most of Gatov's damage comes from his dual swords. The damage dealing variants on the other hand, are high damage low cost skills, making them an excellent source of continuous damage for Gatov while dual wielding. Overall, all variants of this skill serve their purpose well, though the high cost of Charge Blade will need some workaround, as it is Gatov's sole method of filling the Swordmaster gauge. His second skill, Counterfang, costs 3,120 SP. This skill is default when Gatov is wielding an axe, and allows Gatov to enter into a counter stance for 1.5 seconds. When he is attacked, while in this stance, he will deal 2,508% damage to enemies around him. This skill will also dispel one buff from each enemy, restores half of the damage received as HP, and red is his first skill for use. When he doesn't receive any damage while in counter stance, this skill will be ready for use again, until a successful counter is performed. This skill has 2 unique characteristics, the first being, while in counter stance, Gatov is immune to knockback. Second, this skill is not affected by energized, so energy will not increase its counter damage. When he is in dual sword mode, this skill becomes Azure Aid, which he probably uses his blue sword to cast, as the name implies. Azure Aid costs 2240 SP, deals 1778% damage to surrounding enemies, and dispels a buff from each enemy. This skill has an impressive range. When this skill is used after Crimson Rush, which is the dual sword variant of his first skill, a variant called Dual Demolition is used instead, where he used both red and blue swords. Dual Demolition does the same thing as Azure Aid, but deals nearly double the damage, at 3184%. The range of this variant is slightly greater than that of Azure Aid. This skill and all of its variants are of more defensive and utility based nature than his first skill. Counterfang as a countering skill is the best form of current countering skills to date, as it fixes the most annoying issue of countering, which is the lack of damage and skill reset when no counters are performed successfully. Both Azure Aid and Dual Demolition are more direct and excellent damage dealing and dispelling skills, with low SP costs. Overall, this skill is a very impressive skill that has low SP on all three variants, as well as being the first counter-attack skill with its fundamental issues rectified. Typically, modern Gala units have much more unique set of co-abilities, and Gatov is no exception. His main co-ability grants 10% increase in both HP and defense, making him the first non-collab exclusive unit in the game to have this co-ability. The previous unit that had this is Crom, a flame sword unit from the Fire Emblem collaboration event. The co-ability is a good defensive based co-ability to have on any team. His chain co-ability grants a 10% increase in strength when a successful dodge is performed and has a 15-second cooldown. This is especially useful as there are many endgame stages where a lot of dodging is required. Gatov has dual resistances, typical of Gala units. He is resistant to both stun and sleep. Now, to his abilities. His core ability, Dual Sword Mastery, is the one that grants him the Sword Master gauge. The gauge can only be filled by the Charge Blade skill, and when filled, depletes at a rate of 3% per second, giving him 33 seconds of uptime on his dual sword form. While dual wielding, Gatov is immune to knockback, and is granted a unique attack pattern as well as a unique force strike. The sword variants of his skills are also immediately readied for use. When the gauge is depleted, he will revert back to his axe form, and the skill gauges will reset and revert back to their default forms. Aside from the insane mods and range on his attacks when in dual sword form, this form basically makes him go ham on his enemies. It's kind of similar to Gala Mascular, where both are able to attack much faster when entering a particular state or mode. It is incredibly powerful, and at the same time, a lot more satisfying to play. His second ability allows his first skill to grant a defense amp, which has a cooldown of 20 seconds. This amp has a maximum team amp level of 3. The 20-second cooldown is a much needed improvement from the 30-second cooldown found on similar abilities, which made them significantly more unusable. Also, this ability is the one that grants the additional damage mods to his next use of Dual Demolition or Double Flame, whenever he uses the 7th attack in his dual sword combo chain. Both of these skills have high damage mods, so slapping on additional mods on these skills makes these skills a lot more powerful than they already are. Based on his kit, it is pretty obvious that Gatov is a main DPS, whose main source of damage comes from his dual sword stance. While his axe stance isn't completely useless, the first skill has a very high SP cost, while his second skill can only perform attacks in the form of counter-attacking. Therefore, a good build on Gatov will put a high emphasis on his dual sword stance, and ensure that it is able to be activated more frequently. The SP issue on his first skill can be addressed by having more skill haste on him and his team. Having archers and skill haste prints on Gatov are the two ways that he can mitigate his high SP cost. The rest of his build will be solely focusing on his damage potential. Putting your best and most suitable offensive abilities on Gatov will be much preferred. For his dragon, I personally prefer Ibornini, as he puts out way more consistent damage without strict requirements. Mars is a good choice too, but I couldn't get the maximum amount of damage from Mars unless I keep Gatov's HP above 50% all of the time. However, his skill prep after ending shapeshift is an excellent solution to his high SP issue of his charge blade. Simply shapeshift after Gatov ends his sword stance, and use charge blade immediately after ending shapeshift to re-enter dual sword stance. To be honest, this is way better, and why didn't I think about it in the first place? Another good recommendation is Horus, as he boosts attack speed, making Gatov attack faster, and just make him more fun to play. For his team composition, as I said previously, having an archer will help mitigate Gatov's issue with his SP. A support archer will be way better. For this I would recommend Summer Alex, as she provides excellent Scorch Rend support, assisting Gatov greatly, especially since Gatov himself is able to inflict Scorch Rend. For his Wimprint setup, this is what I have currently on my Gatov. A fully offensive build with some skill haste, just to deal with his SP. Though, I'm considering switching out an E for Mars, so skill haste may be replaced with another offense-based print. Gatov, as the latest addition to the collection of story-related Gala units, certainly brings a lot to the table. He is a complicated unit, and it does take a while to understand the full kit. But, after understanding fully, it is realized that he is an incredibly powerful unit, and one that highly resembles Gala Mascular in many ways, especially their immensely powerful attacks when in their core powerful state. What makes Gatov a step above Mascular is his significantly higher skill damage and his capability of DOT affliction that Mascular didn't have. His weakness, I would say, is the high SP cost of his charge blade. Without good skill haste abilities or even Gala Mars, Gatov will have a hard time entering his dual Southwesterners stance often, diminishing his damage potential. But overall, Gatov is an incredibly powerful and fun unit to play, which is kinda expected for every new release of a Gala unit at this point. I'm glad that I saved up quite a lot of Wimite and summon tickets by going for nearly 2 months without summoning, and able to get him in about 110 pulls. Now go out there and expect a massive delay in my upload schedule. I'm required to take more overtime recently, which gave me much more pay, but severely reduced my available time per day. This, as well as the ongoing event in Genshin Impact, contributed to the delays. I even failed to complete Contingency Contract 5 in Arknights due to lack of time. I'm sorry if this proves to be a disappointment. That's all from me. Moga out.